Good morning. When two democracies start a trade war, then it's definitely time to think, to ruminate, and to find the implications. I'm not talking of USA and Canada. I'm talking of Canada and India. The trade between the two countries is not significant at this time. But whenever I go to any of the conferences, especially those organized by Indo-Canadian associations or on India, I hear everybody talking very volubly and glibly about the close relationship because both are multicultural, because both are democracies, because both are members of the British Commonwealth of Nations. And yet, the two countries have a running war. When Prime Minister Harper was there was all effort to sign a free trade agreement. And that did not mature. The present government is more concerned with free trade with China than with India. Well, free trade or no free trade. Something very, very disturbing happens. This weekend, a high-powered trade mission goes to India. Rather, it left for India on this weekend. They would be reaching there today. And on the just couple of days prior to that, without any information, without any warning, India decided to slap 50% tariff on lentils coming from Canada to India. And imagine this 50% imposition of tariff is the highest possible permitted by WTO. If they had done more than that, it would have drawn censure and criticism from WTO. It's amazing why this increasing trade spat in the two countries. The Agriculture Minister Lawrence McCauley says that they'll try their level best. We were caught by surprise. If they were caught by surprise, then there must be something wrong with their intelligence. And that means the High Commission in India is not possibly doing the job of keeping up to pace with what's happening. This pulse issue is not a new one. It has been increasing in strength and intensity over the last few years. India wants pulses and India needs pulses. And Canada delivers it to them. Approximately every year, pulses worth $4 billion worth are imported by India. So in case 50% tax is levied on the Canadian exports to India, you can well imagine the effect. Naturally, India would be searching for the other countries. You see, the issue is very simple. India needs the pulses to be fumigated before they arrive in India. Apart from Canada, US and France are the other suppliers. And last time, a final warning was given to them. USA and France received 6 months exemption, that after 6 months, they would have to fumigate the pulses are not exported. Canada exporters were granted only 3 months. But why this differentiation? There must be something wrong that while USA and France were given 6 months, Canada was given 3 months. And the next question which crops up is, why should the pulses not be fumigated? The health of the citizens of any country is of supreme importance to that country. The pulses which go there have pesticides, and the fumigation is required to remove those pesticides. It has at time even pests, living pests in that, and that also needs fumigation. Now what India has been doing is that when they reach India, the Indian port, these pulses are quarantined, subject to fumigation, and this 50% extra levy is used to treat the pulses by fumigation. By the way, looking at the total Canadian exports, 33% of the Canadian export of pulses goes to India. 33%. So we always say customer is the king. And if customer is the king, the demand of the king must be accepted. Especially a customer who is that important. A buyer who is buying 33% of your total production has a certain requirement, and you cannot dictate to that buyer. You could have dictated if you were the sole supplier in the world, which you are not. And secondly, you could also have dictated if the demand of India was unreasonable, which it is not. Now imagine the trade mission to India goes the weekend. I'm leaving today morning, I was just informed. And on Friday, the agriculture minister leaves for China on a 2-week mission. Instead of taking action on this imposition of 50% extra duty, the minister is leaving for China. That only shows that they give more importance to China than they give to India. And that is not something which India would like to tolerate. Let's not deny the fact that India and China are engaged in an unspoken war of trade. Both the countries with great populations are the biggest markets. China is a bigger exporter market as well, more compared to India. But both countries want to be treated as the prime trading partner. India has agreed that, okay, it cannot be prime because it doesn't export that much. But it can at least have MFN, most favored nation. And at the same time, it can have requirements relating to health fulfilled. The mission going to India today consists of International Trade Minister, Transport Minister, and Innovation Minister. As a matter of fact, the government should have immediately changed the composition of the ministers, and Agriculture Minister must have been included in this. This would have been important to show India that Canada is serious. The very fact that the Canadians have taken it in stride, although saying that we are concerned at the action of India, and sending the Agriculture Minister to China for a future deal, while not quelling the fire that is burning in the Indo-Canadian trade. At the same time, regarding the pulse industry, it has been reported that the pulse growers in Alberta and Manitoba will have no longer royalty-free access to crop development center varieties. That means the Canadian pulses would be extremely expensive. Since they have to pay royalty to the crop development center varieties, their cost of production will increase. Then 50% extra tariff rate would further increase the prices. Consequently, the Canadian pulses would not be imported in India. Who suffers? The country suffers. But most important, the pulse growers suffer. And the relation between India and Canada become more tense. What Harper was expecting may not be happening. But worsening of trade relations is definitely not a good sign, especially after there was a dip in the relations when Harjit Sajjan visited India and he was not given the proper welcome. It received a further setback when Ontario Assembly passed a resolution with only 34 members voting in favor of that, criticizing India for the so-called genocide of Sikhs, thereby interfering in the internal affairs of India. All these issues. And then, I'm amazed. 6 months back, when the exemptions were given, and USA and France received 6 months exemption, and Canada received only 3 months exemption. Why did Canada not understand that India is not happy? India was sending a very clear signal to Canada: be on guard. India is no longer willing to be trifled with. India is no longer likely to suffer slights, interference in internal affairs, and also accommodate other countries at the cost of the health of its own citizenry. As a matter of fact, Senior Trade and Agriculture Minister, they have traveled repeatedly to India, but they could not come up with any long-term fix for the problem. And then look at the dreams in which our leaders and the bureaucrats live in Ottawa. One of the officers said, we expected that India would automatically give us another extension when it expired at the end of September. The extension has not been granted, meaning now the Canadian pulses exporters are required to pay the fumigation fee, which is 50% of the cost at the time of arrival. One thing we have to go to ensure is that apart from the large presence of the people of Indian origin in Canada, which are a major vote bank, and no political party should deny them, the very fact that both are parliamentary democracies, the very fact that both are members of the Commonwealth of Nations and English speaking, with a free press and independent judiciary, there's a need for India and Canada to collaborate and ensure that their trade deals become a sort of an example to the world. Here also they are becoming an example, but in a negative aspect. We need immediate resolution of this issue. We need Canada understands the needs of India. And India also should not discriminate in the three exporting countries. It should not give favoritism, indulgent favoritism, and give undue favor to France and USA and not to Canada. If pulses from those two countries can be accepted for a period of 6 months, the same 6 months should have been given to Canada. I agree that you cannot demand an exemption as a matter of right. But equity demands that we should be fair. I hope that the experts in both the countries can sit down, rack their brains, and come up with a solution so that neither the public in India suffers nor the pulse growers in Canada suffer. In the interest of all, the Canadian government should wake up to its responsibilities, and so should Indian government, and come to a decision which is fair and which is long-lasting. Thank you.